We waited so long for their updates that never came. I slowly started coming back to it, but I eventually ended up leaving the game again. Thank God I quit Royale High in 2020. I loved the roleplays, but left as soon as it stopped. The release of the school was supposed to be its big comeback. When everything slowly got more and more pricey, I ended up quitting. I played a little in the new school, but when they announced that they were getting rid of the mask models, I left right then and there. It's not even a fun game anymore. What are you studying in college right now?
Game development.
Yeah, let's go. We love our game devs. Do we?
No, we don't.
Okay.
Isn't that the whole point of this video?
No, I mean...
I learned a lot of stuff in my game development program at my college.
The first question I asked him is, what are the big ideas that you learned from your game development class? He went into these structural ideas that make up a game, and I think can be applied to Royale High.
So games are built with 3 components: mechanics, dynamics, and aesthetics. Mechanics are things that player can do, and those are things that are quite simple, like jumping, moving around, clicking things. Dynamics are how 2 mechanics work together. For example, when you change to a male body type, it changes the way your clothes are designed. And the third one, aesthetics, are the emotional responses you receive from playing a game. Aesthetics are the most complicated component in a game because they are subjective responses from playing the game.
You basically gave us 3 things that games all have. With this information, I'm going to go into more detail explaining how these concepts are built into Royale High. Now, mechanics, firstly, you can talk a lot about mechanics, and honestly you can talk about dynamics a lot too. However, these are very, very intertwined with Roblox and the things that you can do in Roblox, things as simple as jumping and clicking things, which Jackson already mentioned. But in a broader context, the mechanics in Royale High would include things like Sunset Island, the dress-up system, and dorm decoration, wishing at the fountain for halos. You can level up, you can get XP by finishing quests. There are also mini games, which I've categorized as archery, the tidy textbooks, and musical chairs. Trading and purchasing, there's also the daily login and wheel spin. You can also socialize. So we just have a bunch of these really big mechanics. It seems like a lot of things to do in Royale High, right? Honestly, most of these things have been a part of the game since its creation. Yeah, these are all things that you can do in the game, right? However, Royale High, I wouldn't say fails in making its mechanics. There are a lot of mechanics, and they're good mechanics to have in a dress-up game. These mechanics are all present and they're all functional for the most part. However, you can make the argument that Royale High did fail, or at least did not keep their mechanics up to the highest functioning quality. And that is because of bugs and glitches that aren't fixed regularly. There are a lot of bugs and there are a lot of glitches in Royale High that exist and have existed for years. And that is a separate video that I think that I'm going to make, all the glitches in Royale High. For dynamics, it's a little bit more difficult to find examples of this in the game. However, there is a crossover between dress up and trading. People trade a lot, and that's because they want items so they can dress up and they can use them. The other really big dynamic present in the game are between the minigames, quests, and levels. So with the release of the 3rd campus, quests were implemented, and there were a couple new minigames that would also give you XP. Now, that, of course, changed the way that people grind for levels. The 2 main dynamics present in the broader context of Royale High would be trading and leveling up or grinding. Now, for the aesthetics are, as we said before, more complicated. And this is because they involve emotional responses that people receive from playing games.
So the 611 framework is 6 emotions and 11 instincts that games typically create. Make sure you're writing this down.
Okay.
In the 611 framework, there are 6 emotions that a game can employ: fear, anger, joy, pride, sadness, and excitement. These are all pretty simple emotions, but where it gets complicated is the instincts that cause them. The 11 instincts are survival, self-identification, collecting, greed, protection, aggressiveness, revenge, competition, communication, exploration, and color appreciation. And I know none of you guys understood anything I just said, but trust me, these instincts show up in every game, and they're the reasons that you have emotions when playing.
Yep.
And she didn't write it down.
I did write it down. What are you talking about? Royale High is a dress-up game, so it's not like we're gonna have all aspects of the 11 instincts or all aspects of the 6 emotions present in the game. However, there are three main instincts that Royale High employs, and these instincts are self-identification, collecting, and communication. Self-identification is pretty self-explanatory because Royale High is a dress-up game. You can play as whoever you want to be, and it's fun, and it's great, right? Like, we as players have a lot of fun making ourselves, making who we want to be as people, making characters, and dressing up. When we engage in dressing up our avatars, we feel a sense of happiness and we feel a sense of pride. Those are the two emotions that primarily come out of this self-identification instinct. In the early years of Royale High, options were limited. Back then, of course, it was a princess dress-up game, mainly for girls, so we have come a long way since then. But recently, there have been changes that have stood in the way or have become obstacles in terms of self-identification. The main problem being, of course, the masculine system changes, and that leaves masculine players with no new options, and it's discouraging. That is the opposite of what joy and pride are. Lots of different people flock to this game because you get to choose who you want to be. And now, since we don't get a lot of new updates and we don't get a lot of new content, and the one time that we did last year, unfortunately, was not even able to be used by people who present masculine, and it's disappointing to see. One of the other places where Royale High has failed here, and I honestly believe that they have lacked ever since its creation, is the cultural representation. Cultural representation in Royale High has always been a little bit of a problem in the multiple cultures that they have tried to represent. They have fallen short on. The main example being the cherry blossom set, which was supposed to be a kimono, but of course, as we all know, it's very culturally inaccurate. There are mistakes, and we've been promised a rework, never got one. And of course, the incident in 2022 with Black History Month and Lunar New Year, very discouraging. They promised to fix these issues and to be engaged with different cultures accurately. However, they did nothing for the past 2 years since 2022, it's just very discouraging. And it's interesting because a lot of other games have picked up on that, the lack of cultural representation that Royale High gives and provides accurate, or at least more accurate, representation of cultures, different cultures. Other games do that because Royale High failed to do it. We've seen the consequences firsthand. One of the reasons why it is so important to talk about cultural representation and cultural accuracy in these games is because they are dress-up games. They are games for us players, and we want to see our own cultures represented well in these games. So in the terms of self-identification, cultural representation is a really important part of these dress-up type games. It's what we want to see. It's how we are represented to players who are not a part of our culture that we are also concerned about too. Now, the second instinct is collecting. A lot of people in the community have this instinct. I don't think everybody has it though, because Royale High used to be a role-playing game. Collecting really became a really big thing when trading was introduced to the game. It also became really prominent when sets started coming out regularly. Royale High was known for good quality dress-up sets and items, especially the ones made by Tsukimeki, who at the time, I would argue, was the main set developer for Royale High. I love her so much. No one can top Tsukimeki, but anyway, trading was introduced. Now people had a way to trade items for money or for other items, and collecting became a really big thing. And that promoted, unfortunately, a toxic environment from both the players and the developers, because the developers weren't following up on the rules and regulations that they had placed in terms of trading. A lot of Roblox games that have trading have this problem though. Trading and purchasing items elicits a lot of emotions. Of course, if you get a trade, you get something that you really, really want for a good price, you'll be excited about it. You'll feel pride and you'll feel joy. If you try to trade with someone and you can't afford to have an item that you really, really like, that can also elicit anger and sadness. I think collecting is actually one of the biggest instincts. It's one of the most important ones in terms of keeping players coming back to the game. This became a problem when Royale High failed to update their game, and there was a massive lack of updates and new content and new items in 2023. And even in 2022, when I returned to TikTok for the first time, there was a lot of talk about badge collecting. Badge collecting saw its rise, I believe, when Royale High started to fail to keep up with their updates and fail to give us new content. People weren't focusing on collecting items anymore because there was nothing new to collect. People were focused on collecting badges, and that also became a problem. Trading morphed the concept of being rich. Collecting is one of the biggest instincts that Royale High implements in its game, and one of the biggest reasons why people have kept on coming back. I, for one, am a huge collector. I have almost every item in the game. It's an instinct that can promote unhealthy behaviors and addictive behaviors that Royale High, I wouldn't say exploits, but definitely uses to their advantage. All around, the collecting instinct can promote unhealthy and toxic behaviors, but they're also addictive, and that's what kept the game going. And here, in the middle of editing this video, I realized that I didn't even talk about how expensive these sets are. We get so few items in a year, and when we get new stuff, it is so extremely expensive, and it is so discouraging for an average player to go in the game and have to grind for hours just to get like a part of this set. It's frustrating, and I admittedly take it for granted because I have had diamond multipliers for the longest time, but most players don't have that. It is just a bad decision, game-wise, to release something this expensive because the majority of players are not going to be able to afford this, not unless they have multipliers. This is important because if players don't think that they have any chance to get this set before time runs out, why would they spend time on this game trying to grind for diamonds and trying to complete the set when they know that they won't be able to afford it? Logic, people, logic. Good lord. And see, yet again, Royale High continues to jeopardize its own game and continues to self-sabotage by releasing sets that are extremely expensive, not beginner friendly. It is so unnecessary to have a set over 200,000 diamonds, even a set over 150,000 diamonds. And I thought we were done. I thought we were over this. I thought we were gonna... Bad decisions have been made. That's all I'm gonna say. Back to your regularly scheduled program. The last instinct that I want to talk about is communication. Roblox especially has socialization and chat built into every single one of its games. Almost all of the games, the popular games on Roblox, are multiplayer games where you interact with other players in real time. Royale High uses that. It was founded upon the idea of being a roleplay game. With the release of Campus 2, the communication instinct was further boosted, and it was, at the time, really well made. But with the release of the new school, Campus 3, Royale High failed to make its game a good roleplay game, and there are a lot of reasons why. The communication instinct and roleplaying elicits pretty much all 6 emotions that we've talked upon. Again, these 6 emotions are fear, anger, joy, pride, sadness, and excitement. And of course, when you're roleplaying, you're going to feel a lot of things because you're acting as a character. You're basically acting with other people in real time, improv, make-believe. It's fun, and you can feel real emotions through these interactions. Before Campus 3 was released, I remember there being a lot of talk about the hope that roleplay would be promoted again, that roleplay would be revived. I honestly believe that Royale High wanted roleplay to come back. That is a big reason why people spent hours upon hours on this game, because they would interact with other people. They would interact with other people in roleplays that could last, half a day. It was wild. It was fun. And I remember those days, especially in Campus 2, but we all thought that Campus 3 would help. Royale High has released clips of sneak peeks. We are gonna be able to carry our friends for roleplay purposes, and they're definitely aware that Royale High has had a huge roleplay aspect in it. But the new school didn't promote roleplay at all. It actually only promoted level farming with the quests. That was the first thing that they implemented. The quests. Not the classrooms, not the entire school, the quests. A working, functional level farming system that people can spend hours grinding on because they just don't have everything on Campus 3 released yet. They don't have a real class, they don't have the cafeteria, we don't have the updated archery game, we don't have the basketball game, we don't have the art class, we don't have a lot of the parts of Campus 3 that made Royale High Royale High. You know what I mean? Campus 2 and Campus 1, you have the dance, you have art class, you have everything in one place, everything in one server. But for Campus 3, you have to teleport to different servers to get to a new location. That is really hard to navigate for people who want to roleplay. When you were in Campus 1 and when you were in Campus 2, you would be able to go to all these different locations with the same people in your server. But you can't do that anymore in Campus 3. And in Campus 3, you don't even have a set schedule yet. And that's probably because you don't even have a real class. You just have musical chairs. That's not a class. I understand that Royale High really wanted to turn up on the build and impress people with how pretty Campus 3 is. And it is gorgeous. But, you can't have everything in one place like they had Campus 1 and Campus 2 before. And that means that if you wanted to roleplay with someone and go to the dorms or go to the bathroom, you would have to leave the server and then coordinate with the person or the people that you are role-playing to go to the same server that you are going to. And that takes you out of the roleplay. And that design of having separate servers for separate locations in itself, it's a really big obstacle for people who want to roleplay in this game. So the big three instincts: self-identification, collecting, and communication. These three instincts are the main instincts that Royale High implements in its game. Self-identification through the dress-up system elicits the emotions of joy and pride. Royale High has created obstacles in terms of the self-identification instinct through the lack of accurate cultural representation, as well as the failure to make a body scaling system in time for new items to come out, leaving masculine players without the option to use new items in the game. Collecting, the second instinct, is arguably what keeps players coming back to this game. Collecting is promoted through trading, purchasing items at the shop, and even badge collecting. It elicits the emotions of joy, excitement, anger, sadness, and pride. Royale High has failed, especially in the years of 2022 and 2023, when there was a lack of new updates and new content, leaving players with no new items to collect. The final instinct implemented is communication. Communication is built in almost all Roblox games with its chat feature. Royale High was founded on the idea of being a princess roleplay game. Communication through roleplay elicits all 6 emotions: fear, joy, pride, anger, sadness, and excitement. Royale High has failed with the release of Campus 3 to promote communication and to promote roleplay because of the way the game is designed. Each location in the new school is in a different server, making it hard to coordinate across a group of role players to move to a different location because you have to join a new server. And these are all just the big ideas. I haven't said a thing about bugs. I haven't said a thing about how mobile players and Xbox players can't play the game, especially in the new campus, because of memory issues, of how much memory it takes to run even Castle's Heart. Royale High has failed fundamentally in its game development with the release of Campus 3. It's one of the biggest reasons why it lacks the ability to be a revival for the game. And because Royale High fundamentally failed at its own game design and own game development, all the problems on top of that, it just makes the game feel worse. I don't know how to describe it. When you fail at the fundamentals, you're gonna have a hard time building upon those things. If your base fails, then everything else fails with it. On top of having failed fundamentally, you have problems like managing developer attitudes, lack of communication, lack of bug fixes. Those problems are made even more worse because Royale High has failed in the fundamentals of building their game to be successful in the ways that they were successful before. Now, keep in mind that me and Jackson are both not experts. I'm just providing a different lens and a different analysis on why Royale High failed, with the main aspect being the game itself, and not focusing on any of the other problems that Royale High has outside of the game.
In the 611 framework, there are 6 emotions that games can employ. Why did I say that? Why didn't I just say have?
Because that's the right word. That's a better word.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm so smart.
just
Okay,
keep
shut up,
going.
shut up.